So, hello, anyone who might be lurking in the chat and or watching in the future. And we're like for the first time. Yeah, I think this is the first time we've covered a movie that's so recent.
We did another round. We did that fairly
Yeah.
quick on the draw. Other than that, I think you're right.
Yeah, this is the only time we've been basically recent enough to be relevant.
Yeah. I think it says a lot though that how fast Disney Plus has become ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And that's probably a conversation to have. We should have had when we did the Disney stream. But how quickly they've become ubiquitous and how quickly so many people have got access to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Because the reason we don't do recent movies is because we don't all have time to go to the cinema, or there's other reasons why we can't go to the cinema. But to have it on a streaming service it's there.
Yeah.
And it's one price for all. It's not like Amazon Prime where you get some movies but not others. And I'm slamming it, but I actually have it. So,
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of factors. I don't think it'll be the last movie we do. That's more recent.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's the last Disney movie that we will do more recent. You did Luca quite quickly.
That wasn't the media musings. That was me reacting to the whole, essentially the Pentecostal satanic panic around it.
Yeah, that tracks. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as streaming services become more ubiquitous now, we are going to probably end up doing a lot more recent movies if you can talk me into watching them when they're actually relevant.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've watched a movie that's actually relevant since another round, and then before then, I think, aside from going to the cinema to see movies, I can't remember the last time I watched something when everyone was still talking about it and it was still trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I watched Midnight Mass, but that's not a movie; it's a TV show.
And of course, I pushed hard for this, and you just watched it for the first time. Can you see why I pushed hard for this?
I can see why you pushed hard with it. I'm also mad at you because you didn't tell me to stock up on Kleenex. I cried. Okay. I'm a fragile noodle today. I cried.
I mean,
this movie hit me right in like the generational trauma. Like not even the songs, just the generational trauma.
Yeah. And well, Noodle, you know me. You know how often I cry at movies. Like,
you don't.
Like watching.
You just stare.
Yeah, I watched it. I watched it again. Just a few hours ago, and yeah, the ending had me tearing up.
It wasn't even the ending that had me tearing up, although I do have to admit, when she looked at the thing and I just looked and my brain just went, it's her door, and I dissolved.
Yeah. But well, I mean, it's like it. To be fair, it's probably like something that just kind of builds over the movie, and like the ending is just when I hit my threshold for crying.
Nuh-uh. I just no.
No.
From the first time the words "make your family proud,"
yeah,
I was in tears. I was in bits. This movie hit me in the generational trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a kids' film that really is designed to upset all of the adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as well, because I was saying before we went live,
Yeah.
It's cathartic because it doesn't shy away from the impact of expectation, trauma, traumatic family histories. But there's a little part of me that, once all the tears are finally out, I can feel it's like a tiny little flame in my chest. I'm angry at this film. I am angry at this film. And I'm angry at the ending of this film. Because the people who really need to see this film, the older generations who do this to their kids, are not the ones who are going to see it. And this film, I hate to say it, is going to set those kids up to believe that one day it's all going to come good.
Yeah.
And kids, I hate to break it to you, but that doesn't happen. What happens is the people who put all that pressure on you just slowly die off over years, and you learn to deal with it, and you learn to just let it go for your own sanity.
Yeah.
So I get it, it's a Disney movie that's not a Disney ending, but I'm still mad at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's crack on.
Yeah.
Before I get too mawkish.
Yeah.
So we start with Mirabella, and she's
like 5, 6-ish.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the gifts tend to happen. I think it's on their 5th birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it says it said in the song it said at one point when they come of age.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if this is a distinctly Colombian thing. Because I know sweet FA about Colombia itself as a country. I should know more.
Yeah.
But coming of age at 5 years old, it's a bit weird. Like, I don't know any other culture that age is particularly relevant to. Like, okay, you start school at 3 years old in the UK or 4 in the US. Jews have, when they're about 13, they have a bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
The ancient Romans, it was when the boy was sometime around 15, 16. The ancient Greeks, the same. I know a lot of cultures put a lot of effort into Sweet 16, 17. 18 is obviously adulthood in the UK, 21 in America. 21 in the UK, we call it key in the door. It's the idea that you push key in the door. 21 is a bingo call, but because that was traditionally the age at which you moved out of your parents' house, because you'd finish university and off you go. So I don't know what's really special about 5 years old. If there's something in it, someone please tell me, because I don't know.
Yeah.
But it seems a bit off. I don't know.
It feels like it's one of two things. Either it's like a cultural thing in relation to Colombia, or it's just the magic said so thing.
Yeah, because when watching this film, you kind of think if it was going to be a coming of age, because it is essentially a coming of age movie as well.
Yeah.
You would think it would either be when you're at the age the triplets were at, when the candle happened, or you would think it would be something like puberty, or you would think it would be something like the age the grandfather was, Abuelo was.
Yeah.
So I can only assume it's a Colombian thing.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, but to me, it was just a bit like you give a 5-year-old super strength. For the record, most kids haven't grown out of having tantrums over not getting sweets at the supermarket at 5 years old. Was that wise?
I'd like to bring up the fact that Dolores, at 5 years old, was suddenly able to hear every conversation that every adult was ever having, including sexual ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
like, I want to know how other kids happened without them traumatizing Dolores that much.
No, look at Dolores's face. She's
heard some shit.
Yeah,
she's got the 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
Then you've got a 5-year-old who can control the weather. You've got
tied to her emotions.
Yeah, like literally the living embodiment of pathetic fallacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her hormonal years must have been a nightmare.
You've got a 5-year-old who only sees negative prophecies. I mean, poor Bruno.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think about being 5 years old is that tends to be around the time people's memories solidify. So maybe for most of them, once you reach adulthood, your earliest memories are going to be between 3 and 5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people as far back as 2, some people not so early. Mine's like 3.5, 4-ish. That's because it was a big major world event. Well, I say world event, it was a countrywide event.
Yeah. My earliest memory is a random birthday card that I have no idea why I remember it, that I got for my 3rd birthday.
It was colourful, it stuck in your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
I think I still have a picture of it somewhere, but I don't still have it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that... Sorry, Ring.
My earliest memory is probably 2, maybe... probably about 3, when I accidentally shoved a stick down my throat.
Yeah.
I think that something you said about Bruno's power there, Noodle, I'm still not certain of, about it only being negative prophecies, because Isabella's was positive, Mirabelle's was uncertain. My general impression was that people always kind of stopped him when it got to a bad thing or asked about things they were worried about, which then inevitably had a bad outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it so what we're saying is we're going to start out about talking about Bruno.
We're going to start talking about Bruno.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Bruno.
Also, there was a really uncomfortable undercurrent in this movie that pretty much right up until we started to hear the truth about Bruno.
Yeah.
There was a really uncomfortable element where I was like, is he a pedophile? Did he murder someone? Like, they had such a vibe of that. We don't talk about that person because they're just...
Yeah.
It really did have that vibe. Like, we don't talk about that weird uncle, or we don't talk about that guy who went to prison.
Yeah.
You know? It did have that vibe. Did anyone else get that vibe from it? Yeah. Obviously, that wasn't what it was going to be because it's a Disney movie, but vibe.
Yeah, and though it kind of makes it darker when it turns out he's basically being shunned for, he's basically being obliterated from mention for telling the truth.
I feel like
Cassandra.
Yeah.
Tiresias.
It's like Bruno is very much the trope of
the curse of prophecy.
Yeah, the curse of prophecy.
Yeah. I think Bruno's color scheme, alongside the way his song was set up, I think for a Disney film, they put in all of the indicators that Bruno was going to be a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he
I
had
think
his
that's where
touch
that
of
vibe
villain.
comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I so you know how I'm bringing up Frozen because I'm making a point. So you know how Let It Go was Frozen's big breakout song?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone knows the story about Let It Go and Frozen. It was originally written as a villain song, but then the voice actress put so much into it, they basically turned it into an anthem.
Mm-hmm.
And We Don't Talk About Bruno is
Definitely,
is the villain song of Encanto, and it is the standout song.
Yeah, it is. I also just want to point out, and Chaos, you're excused from this question. You'll see why in a second, although you can answer it if you like. When last did you see that exact shade of green light in a Disney movie?
I was not prepared for that question.
You see it in Notre Dame.
Yeah.
You see it in The Lion King.
Yeah.
The Lion King's the big one.
Yeah, that's why I answered that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually said to my partner when I was first watching it, I'm getting real Scar vibes from the way that Camilo just presented Bruno.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even Bruno's room was very cavernous. There is definite Scar vibes there, and it's black sheep of the family. Even the color schemes and
yeah,
the
up until you meet Bruno,
he's the villain.
Yeah, the movie presents Bruno as the villain, but then you realize the real villain was the trauma we picked up along the way.
Yeah. Anyway, are we going to go through this movie thematically, or are we going chronologically?
I think we've already started going thematically.
Right. Okay. Because the thing with Bruno is as well, though. Bruno's what happens if Scar had left rather than sitting and stewing and watching Mufasa have the perfect life. And I kind of think Bruno's what happens to Mirabel if the house doesn't crack. Or Scar is what happens if the house doesn't start to crack and Mirabel doesn't get a moment in the light.
Yeah.
Because you see the bitterness and resentment, especially with Isabella and Mirabel.
Yeah.
But I will say, obviously Mirabel adores her family.
Yeah.
And we see that in the initial exposition song. And I'm not saying she doesn't for a second, but what I'm saying is, imagine living how Mirabel was at the start. Because she's only, maybe 10, 11 in this movie?
Yeah. I thought she was more like 14, 15.
Yeah, I pegged her as early, maybe mid-teens.
I pegged her somewhere between sort of 10 and 12.
Yeah. Younger than 16, I think, is our consensus there then.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely not an adult, but she's quite clearly not been through the full effects of puberty yet. Which means she's probably not older than about 14.
Yeah.
And
So-
she's still
So
got
preteen, young teen, essentially.
yeah. So we're saying under 14 here.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, she just struck me as a little bit younger. And imagine going through puberty and everything else, and nothing about her life changing.
Yeah.
That's a villain origin story right there. That would have been a villain origin story. You know, how hard Abuela was on her, and the way she was.
The way she's basically infantilized by the family.
Yeah, literally, she lives in the nursery.
Yeah.
And she's. My pervading impression of Mirabelle to almost the very end of this movie is a lonely, abandoned, neglected child reaching out and begging and pleading for someone to just notice her and notice what she's going through.
So so I'm gonna step in here. So, seems to me, everyone agrees we don't talk about Bruno as, the standout song, and then everybody's got one of the other songs that hits them right in the trauma. Now I'm gonna say I've got two that are pretty close, closely tied for that. Waiting on a Miracle was one of them.
The problem I find with Waiting on a Miracle, it hit me hard.
Yeah.
She gets it.
Yeah.
And that kind of undercuts the real trauma of that song. I don't actually know the titles of the songs, so I'm just Googling them, so I've got a list.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Waiting on a Miracle is the actual title. It's the, it is the refrain, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, for me,
I think... Go on, Chaos.
I was just going to say, for me, I think I had a song that hit me hard and a song that would have hit me hard 2 years ago. The song that hit me hard was Surface Pressure, and the one that would have hit me hard 2 years ago was What Else Can I Do?
Yeah. For me, What Else Can I Do? If you'd have played that song for me when I was about 11, 12 years old, so right at the age of these characters, of her at least, I'd have wept like a baby. I would have utterly wept like a baby. I think... I'm just looking at the list of them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I also quite liked that not all the songs were in English.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like that, yeah.
Yeah. And you know.
I mean, yeah, for me, it was surface pressure for me.
Yeah.
And for me, I think surface pressure is the standout track in this film. If you're taking the reading as I have, that this is a film that speaks to the descendants of diasporas, surface pressure is the standout track because it speaks to a truth, and I don't know how prevalent it is amongst families who don't have that kind of history. But there is this constant, unrelenting pressure on children, especially first and second generation, where, like, my dad's Polish. His family came over during the Cold War.
Yeah.
There is this constant, unrelenting pressure to do better, to be better, to never break. And there is this constant undercurrent reminder that it can all go away if you don't stay strong. You can lose it all. I remember being probably younger than, probably about Antonio's age in this movie. Probably about 5 or 6, and being told, you've got to go to school, you've got to get an education, you've got to get a degree, you've got to get a good job, because if you don't, there'll be no one there to help you, there'll be no one there to save you, and you cannot allow anyone to take anything from you, and make sure you get an education, because when they come and they take everything, they can't take that from you, and that's what's going to save you, and that's what's going to help you climb back to your feet. Being told that from 5 years onwards, from being a 5-year-old onwards, I don't know if that's, I don't know. What are your family histories like? Were you told that at a young age? Don't expect anything from these people. We're different to them. We have a history that, and that generational trauma. I think my dad had inadvertently carried it down from his mum and his family, because his mum lived through the Second World War.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and he's
I can't speak for Ring, but she might agree with me. I think that I personally am not in a very good position to answer if that's normal or not, because I very much experienced that, not necessarily because of the culture around me, but because of growing up Pentecostal in like a very cultish environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I can see how being Pentecostal, that the parents,
Yeah.
But I don't know how to give word to it. I don't know how to explain it to you. I come from 2 families that have never in their history truly known security. On the one side, I've got the Polish side, who I don't know about any family previous to my grandparents' generation. I don't even know who my grandfather is.
Yeah.
And there was always that absence of men in the family. It was my grandma and her sister who, her husband died youngish. My great uncle, but he'd fought in the war, and my grandma had 4 kids. My dad was the oldest, and then he only had me. And then my mum's family, Jamaican Indian, with other parts of the family feeding into it, with other histories that come from being a black person in Jamaica. So that generational trauma on both sides has been handed down at least 2 generations on one, and it's got to be at least 4 generations on the other. Realistically, probably more like 6 or 7 on the other.
Yeah.
And it's a unique kind of pressure, and I have found as an adult talking to people, the people who get it, I have a friend who's Jewish. Ring will know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
She gets it. And I've seen how that pressure to live up to the expectations and the hopes and the dreams, and to somehow feel like you have to earn the fact that your ancestors fought to be here.
Yeah.
Because there is literal living memory of people who fought and put their lives on the line to keep the family, to stay alive.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. It's a lot of pressure to put on an adult, never mind a kid.
Yeah.
But I find people who have that family pressure feel it a bit more. I talk to other people. I've got friends who are sort of, Native American. I've got friends who are Polish, Russian.
Yeah.
I am sure that the generation of kids who have spent the last 2 days walking from Kiev to Poland or Kiev to Slovakia, their kids, they'll feel it, and their kids will feel it. And it's one of those things. It's really hard. I don't know if I'm doing it justice by explaining it.
I feel like I at least get what you mean, because while I didn't necessarily experience the same thing, I feel like being the eldest born in a Pentecostal family, I know what you mean. Like, there is that pressure there and that emphasis on, you will need to carry this family.
Yeah, you need to carry this. Now, multiply that by, everyone says only children are spoiled, but we don't have anyone to share that load. I'm an only child. I don't have anyone to share that load. My dad had 3 siblings. My mum had 6 siblings. I'm an only child.
Yeah.
And it's a very... And I think what I got from this movie is it really tapped into... Somehow Mirabelle felt like an only child in a family that big.
Yeah.
The song for Mirabelle of I'm Waiting on a Miracle really taps into that loneliness, and that at some point, I'm Waiting on a Miracle for me is kind of her dark night of the soul in this movie.
Yeah.
It's her Belly of the Whale, and it really taps into a lot of thoughts and feelings that when I was that age I didn't have words for.
Yeah.
That I didn't have words for them because I assumed that everyone felt that way, because I had nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
I've seen people, when that pressure is put on you from a young age, people crack.
Yeah.
And people break under it. I know people who have cracked and broken under it, and the state of their mental health is no laughing matter. And then you see this movie and it's like, it's kind of offering that. It gives you the catharsis of seeing that and really feeling it. But it also offers, finally someone understands.
Yeah.
Finally someone else in the world understands what this is. And there's not something wrong with me, and I'm not just stupid or weak or can't hack it because I feel like this. This is something other people feel. And then it offers the resolution. And that's kind of why it makes me angry, because after offering that catharsis and that support, it offers a resolution in a very traditionally Disney way that kind of isn't realistic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I don't expect Disney to be realistic. But there's going to be kids watching this with all those pressures on their shoulders who are 5 and 6 and 7 years old.
Yeah.
Who are going to internalize the idea that a good family will eventually see you. And I'm concerned for those kids in a few years' time.
Now, okay, so I'm going to say something that will either get people mad at me, or possibly sell so possibly the resolution at the ending is somewhat salvageable on a slightly deeper reading.
Go on.
Because what it took to get that resolution was to tear down everything and then rebuild from the ground up.
Yeah, but the thing with that is it takes more than one person to tear it down.
Yeah.
When you're living in a family with secrets and a house of and it's rotten from the inside, it's really hard to tear it down.
Yeah.
And there are instances, and there is sometimes you've got to look at it and realize that you're the only person who sees the rot, and no one else wants to tear it down, and they are perfectly happy living with the leaks and the cracks. And if you did tear it down, there wouldn't be any foundations left to build on.
Or, the one other person who sees the rot is stuck in the shadows trying to patch everything up.
Or they're in denial.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as well another reading for the ending that I don't think is like a viable artistic reading as much, but would fit better, is the way the miracle reappears when they're rebuilding the house. In order for this to fucking happen, that'd take a fucking miracle.
Yeah. But did you notice as well when the house got built and at the end, the magic actually spread out from the house across the whole village?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than just staying in the house.
I think an interesting thing about that as well is how it affected the mountain range around the Encanto and how it left a gap in it.
Yeah.
And the writers have effectively said that the reason for that is that now the people in the Encanto are more ready to go out and interact with the world again. Yeah. But I also think thematically, in terms of like what that means for their family at the end, it ties in nicely with the more traditional Disney ending, I think, of like...
It does. It's a very Disney ending, and power to it. But I just think maybe I've got too old for Disney movies. Maybe I'm too jaded to appreciate a happy ending anymore. But
maybe. I mean,
this film spoke to a lot of personal traumas for me.
Yeah.
In very subtle ways. We all have that family member no one talks about. We all have the secret no one wants to talk about, but everyone knows is there. Yeah. We all have maybe that one person in the family that no one quite wants to argue with, but who really should be told, hang on, sort yourself out.
Yeah.
We have that controlling person in the family, or we have that person in the family who is all about appearances.
Yeah.
I noticed this with Abuela. What she cared most about throughout all of it was appearances. And this film is very much about
Yeah, appearances. Well, two things: appearances and securing the place of the madrigals in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appearances.
Yeah. Well, because remember, what's the first thing she says to Antonio the day after the the morning after the ceremony?
I'm sure today we will find a way to put your gift to good use.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, kind of, I don't want to necessarily jump here immediately, but I do have thoughts in terms of appearances and Isabella.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And we will get to that, but I just want to point something out. You just said there, tonight we celebrate, tomorrow we find a way to give your gift of good news. Hey, Chaos, what's the stereotype of Indian and Asian kids in the first generation Indian and Asian kids in the UK? What do they all grow up to be?
Doctors or lawyers.
We will find a way to put your gifts to good use.
Yeah.
We will make sure you are standing in the community.
Yeah.
Because that's the only security you can get. And it's the same, I'm sure, you know, it's the stereotypes of when we say Asian in the UK, we mean sort of Middle Eastern, Pakistani, Iranian, all that kind of Middle Eastern part of the world.
Yeah.
But I'm sure in America you have stereotypes about children of Chinese descent or of Vietnamese descent. You know, the stereotype is that they're good at maths, they're all computer programmers and nerds.
Yeah.
They're doing that because their parents pushed them to get an education, because their parents saw education as the gift that they had to put to use.
Yeah.
The gift that they didn't get. And especially if you come from a working class background, I'm sure Chaos can agree with me here in the UK. There's always this very much of your education is everything. I remember being told at a young age, over my dead body will you, clean for anyone else? Over my dead body will you be a cleaner or a cook?
Yeah.
Or, will you wash dishes for a living? You're going to go get an education and you're going to get a good job. And a good job meant a job that you sit down and use your brain to do, not that you do with your hands.
Yeah. I also heard about some of the schools in the area with worse grades. Over my dead body, are you going to that school?
Yeah, over my dead body, are you going there? Or my parents, when I was picking universities, over my dead body, are you going to that university? Have you seen the state of it? Or when I was picking my GCSEs, what the hell do you want to do that for? What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every aspect of our lives is geared towards career building.
Yeah.
That's why the ethnic kids have mental breakdowns at exam time. That's why that happens.
I don't know. I wasn't sure how much I wanted to bring this up, like on streams and shit, but I'm starting a philosophy degree, and when I've announced to people that I'm going to start a philosophy degree,
what you're going to do with that? Be a teacher?
Precisely. I've had one of three responses. One was, "What you going to do with that?" Another was, "Well, that's not like you. You shouldn't do that." As if they don't know what my interests are.
Yeah.
And the other is, but that doesn't make any sense. There's no good jobs in that.
It's exactly what I got when I said I wanted to study history.
Yeah.
Why don't you go do law? Why don't you be a doctor? Well, excuse me, have you got money for 7 years to send me off to be a doctor or a lawyer and to pay for textbooks at £300 a throw? I'm dyspraxic and my parents tried to push me to be an architect because they thought it will be a good, solid job. You can work for the council. I can barely hold a pen straight. They knew this. They knew. They didn't have a word for it at the time because I wasn't diagnosed, but they knew I couldn't draw and I had terrible handwriting. Oh, but you'll learn. Like, I couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler and they wanted me to go be an architect.
I relate to that.
Yeah. You know. And it is very much that all the things I was good at weren't. And I remember having that argument, and the moment that really hit me in the trauma, I remember having the argument with my parents at about 16. But 17. I got my AS level results and I'd failed maths.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd failed something in my life.
Yeah.
And I'd thrown it deliberately because I just didn't want to do it and it wasn't for me. I literally threw the exam. And I remember coming home after I got my results and handing my dad the piece of paper, and he looked at me. He said to me, "What the fuck are you supposed to do with this?" And I went, "Well, I'll do what I have to do." And it caused such a row, especially when I told him that I'd actually thrown the exam. Why did you throw the exam? Why didn't you talk to us? And I came out with it and I said, because what I want for my life and my future is not what you want. You don't want me to live my life. You want me to live the life you never got. And I told my parents that outright. So when she stands there and argues with Abuela and says, "I will never be good enough for you," that hit me right in the,
Oh, that was the emotional feel
flashpoint
central.
of decades of generational trauma going back probably to my grandparents.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure we've all got similar stories, but you know, it's one of those where dad's an electrician, mum's a seamstress, they've good solid jobs, but they never wanted that for me. Always heard that I never wanted that for you. I always wanted better for you. Yeah, so you send me to university to get a degree, and now I'm working in a dead-end call centre job because the economy changed. And what would have been better for me is at 16, when I said I want to go fix cars for a living, if you'd have said, "Yeah, sure, go do it."
Yeah.
But I couldn't even say that to my parents at 16.
Yeah. I feel like something that goes relatively unsaid in Encanto, but is applicable in a lot of situations in real life, especially, I guess, for me and you, Noodle, is the whole, you think you are doing right by me, but that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, there is the I wrote it down. It was one of the first things I wrote down. Expectation, the reality of not meeting expectations, and reality are three different things. And this film really does tease that out. Because you've got the expectations of Abuela, then you've got... And what I really like about this as well, her parents love and adore her.
Yeah.
For exactly who she is. But that doesn't matter because of the pressure from everywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not everyone has to be a bad egg.
Yeah, but it does almost... It feels token that her parents tell her they love her and everything else. Because in the same breath of telling her they love her, they tell her, step aside, take a break. They speak to her like she's a child, like she doesn't understand what's going on around her. And it's patronizing.
Yeah.
And especially because they don't acknowledge what she needed was from the first day when Abuela started saying you have no gift, and because throughout this film Abuela says it again repeatedly, pride in your gift, we are proud of you, we are proud of your gift. Never we are proud of you or who you are as a person, we are proud of your gift.
Yeah, and you know, our gifts help the community.
Yeah, and you know, and for me that's why I think what's the strong sister's name?
Louisa.
Louisa. That's why I think she's hit as the media sensation.
Yeah.
Because she delivers the line of, I'm scared I'm worthless without my gift.
Yeah.
she delivers that line and she nails it.
Yeah.
Because when you grow up under all that pressure and expectation, and whatever the expectation is, if you internalize that, if I'm not that person that they want me to be, I'm worthless. You do internalize that.
Yeah. What worth am I if I can't meet the standard?
Yeah. Who am I if I'm not who they want me to be?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel
that was deep for a Disney movie. This whole movie is deep for a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I imagine that there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of teenagers, I think especially.
Yeah.
Looking for counselors and therapists after seeing this movie. Like, shit, I need to talk this out with someone.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
There's also going to be a lot of loving, well-meaning, and yeah, I've talked about how my parents and I argued, but
yeah,
there's this. As an adult, you learn from this, which this is why, again, I'm quite angry with this movie. You learn not to hold it against them. You learn to forgive them because they're doing their best. And there's going to be a lot of well-meaning, loving parents who are only doing the best they know how for their child. Who, when their child says to them, Mum, Dad, Auntie, whoever's taking care of them, says, I need to talk to someone about what I saw in that film because it hurts. They're going to look at the kid and they're going to go, what have you got to cry about? There's nothing wrong in your life. They're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of denial that they've done that to their child because that's the last thing they wanted to do. And literal lack of understanding of the impact of what they're doing anyway. You know, there's a quote that goes round in certain circles that says, the axe doesn't remember every tree, but the tree remembers the axe.
Yeah.
When the parent's entire life is geared towards doing these things, you know, I guarantee you most of the stuff I've mentioned, my parents probably my dad probably doesn't even remember because that was just how he parented. That was that was normal for him. But I remember it because it struck a blow and it left a mental and emotional scar on me. That's not his fault. He is who he is. But, you know, it still hurts. So where do you go to for that forgiveness? Where do you go to air that out to someone who doesn't remember it? And we can talk about, there's a difference between not remembering it because you just don't remember it because it wasn't that, you didn't think it was that big a deal, and gaslighting. They are two different things. I'm talking about the former.
Yeah.
If you're being gaslit by someone, you just need to cut that person out. But and that's again the crux of this film. Of most families don't realize the pressure they're putting on their kids.
Yeah.
So they're never gonna have that tear down and rebuild moment because they are perfectly happy living with the cracks and the creaking and because they don't know any different.
And the rats that talk in the walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have heard the line a couple of times recently. Maybe maybe the reason you don't remember my trauma is because for you it was a Wednesday.
Yeah. Exactly, that's the point. For you, it was a sunny Thursday afternoon. For me, it was the day I realised my parents. It was the first time in my life. Maybe I realised my parents didn't know everything, or my parents weren't on my side, or you know, that family member wasn't someone safe to be around. For you, it was just another Thursday. For me, it changed my life and it changed who I am as a person.
And
sorry.
So and brain, not doing the brain thing.
Valid.
Valid. This is a deep topic.
Yeah.
So, another thing or how, like, with the exception of the mother, because we don't really see much of her, I might have been the only one who kind of picked up on this, is how, like, you know, with the possible exception of the, you know, mother, everyone is a wreck. Well, and Antonio, because he's, you know, too young to take its toll on him. But yeah, everyone
but
is.
Even you even see it in Antonio, in his fear of walking up the stairs.
Yeah,
he's so terrified of letting the family down. He needs his big sister to hold his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually is pretty similar to the thing I was going to say, which is that I'm pretty sure every single person in that fucking house, besides maybe Abuela, has identity issues.
Oh, Abuela has identity issues.
Actually, thinking about it, yeah, probably.
Abuela has so much trauma going on; it's unbelievable.
I think the easiest example is going to be Camilo. He spends more than half of his time, probably, that he's awake, not being his own physical self.
Yeah, there's a definite thing there. There's also a kind of, I got kind of possibly some sort of disassociation identity disorder vibes from Bruno.
Yeah, I
got that's definitely there.
And
I think he's not neurotypical one way or another.
Yeah, also maybe a little bit of OCD.
With the superstitions,
yeah. The superstitions read as either OCD or autism to me.
Yeah, I would probably say OCD, given because OCD can present itself as a symptom of trauma.
Yeah.
And of course, then you've got Isabella, who is a classic case of Isabella and Louisa are both classic cases of avoidance.
Yeah.
And people pleasing.
Yeah.
And how the problem with, the problem, with Louisa's kept it bottled in for so long that the second she felt okay to let it crack, it all burst out, and she's losing her gift because of her self-doubt, almost, because you see her door flickering throughout the movie.
Yeah
And I think that Louisa and Isabella, because they're presented as a pair even in the song that introduces them, and I think that that's a purposeful thing of, like, it's the two sides of the same thing. One is people pleasing by trying to do everything for everyone all of the time, and the other is people pleasing by trying to be the figurehead they're supposed to be.
Well, it's quite obvious that the gang of three is meant to be Isabella, Mirabella, and Louisa, brains, brawn, and beauty.
Yeah,
it's quite obvious that's the gang of three going on there. And it's showing you what happens when the gang of three doesn't work, because everyone's trying too hard to live up to the archetype instead of just being a human being.
Yeah.
We talk about the older sister or the aunt who controls the weather as well.
Yeah. Peppa is a nervous wreck, just trying to keep her emotions under control, or rather to keep them to keep them away.
And you see it exactly as when Mirabella went to Louisa and Louisa cracked and yelled at her.
Yeah.
You see it in the We Don't Talk About Bruno montage. Oh, and then when Bruno says, I hadn't seen a prophecy, I just wanted my sister to know it was okay to feel.
Yeah.
I saw she was sweating and I just wanted her to know it was okay.
Yeah.
But by doing that, he opened the floodgates and it all burst out.
Yeah.
And it is... Look, weddings are stressful. Trust me, I know. I organised one in this. I organised my own in the space of about 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Weddings are stressful. But as the bride on your wedding day, I got very lucky in my friends and the people around me. My wedding day came along and everyone pulled together. And I did not feel for a second like I did not have a network of support around me on that day. It was a very small wedding, and obviously you'll remember it. But from waking up first thing in the morning, I woke up, I get showered, I put on some fuckery clothes because obviously I'm changing into my wedding dress later.
Yeah.
I go over to my dad's. Carol's already up. My dad's girlfriend is already up.
Obviously I wouldn't remember because I was in a different location.
Yeah. So, this is why I'm telling you this side of it. She's already up. And no, even before I go over to my dad's, one of my mum's oldest friends knocks on my front door. I know she's coming. She knocks on my front door.
Yeah.
And she's got a bottle of wine. She says, come on, it's your wedding day. We're celebrating.
Yeah.
And a little kid's there running around, and it's not a little kid, but she's like 8-9 years old. And she shows up there. Then we go over to my dad's because that's where the wedding dress is. Because my flat's tiny. If you try to get into a wedding dress in my flat, you'll probably break a wall. We go over to my dad's. We arrive at the house. Carol's there. She's got wine on. She's cooked breakfast for us. I didn't know she was cooking breakfast. She's cooked breakfast for us. She's set up the kitchen in such a way so I can sit down and have my hair done. The woman from up the road, she can't make it to the wedding, but she comes down, she knocks on the door, she says, I promised I'd do your hair for you. I'm going to do your hair. Sit down.
Yeah.
I didn't have to lift a finger all morning. All I had to do was climb into the dress. And it was all there. And the love and support, and when things maybe went wrong or didn't work out exactly as they were planned, someone stepped up. And they got me there and got there on time.
Yeah.
I have no idea how I did that. Yeah. And it just people came out onto the street as I was leaving the house. The kids I'd grown up with were out on the street, stood at the front door watching me leave to go get married in my wedding dress. They literally lined the street. My dad's there in his best suit. He's organising things left, right, and centre. At one point, I told my dad, sit down and have a drink. I'll do it. And he looked at me like, you fucking won't. It's your wedding day.
Yeah.
You won't. And he literally looked at me. And even, stuff I wanted to do. And we talked. We even managed to get 5 minutes alone to talk about my mum because she obviously had passed away.
Yeah.
And that feeling of being supported on your wedding day, honestly, that feeling I had, there could have been a fire, there could have been a flood, there could have been anything happen that day.
Yeah.
And I would not have been worried. It would have just been dealt with, and I knew it would have been dealt with. So I really feel for that poor woman that on her wedding day, she was so afraid and so unsupported that she ended up getting married in a frigging hurricane.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is really indicative of the cracks in this family that this film shows. This family are the perfect facade. Do you know what it is? It's very Stepford Wives.
Yeah.
But then under the surface, it's rotten.
Yeah.
And that's why that when you go into the house and you see Bruno's bit, it's all dirty and grey and old and dank.
Yeah.
And you know, it's on the inside and in the background, it's rotten. And dusty and dirty. And it's very much the house was going to go.
Yeah.
Eventually, regardless. Bruno was fighting a losing battle. And it is that moment of this family were not there for each other. They thought they were, and they thought they loved each other, but not in the ways that really counted.
Yeah.
Like, you don't hold a family photo and forget one of the siblings. You don't hold parties and do things like that, and people are pushed aside. You don't tell kids that their only worth is what they can bring to the community.
Yeah.
It was just rotten. The whole thing was rotten from the inside out. And the great tragedy of this film is it was rotten. They all knew it was rotten, but no one had the strength to stand up and say it.
Yeah.
And Abuela, who would let this rot set in, who was arguably the origin of this rot, was only doing her best.
Yeah.
And she was trying. And it was the best she could do with what she had.
Yeah.
So there's no one to blame. There's no... In the modern world, we're very much... We always look for someone to blame. We look for an enemy of sorts.
Yeah.
But there is no enemy in this movie. It's just people trying to get along.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did actually want to bring that up because I've seen so many people say that Abuela is clearly like the villain. And while she might be the antagonist, given our protagonist is Mirabel.
Yeah.
Like, I think even the term antagonist is a stretch.
It's too strong, isn't it? She's not the antagonist. She's more the inciting incident. She's a victim of circumstances, and think about what she's lived through at a young age. She's lived through being displaced. She's lost her husband. She's raised kids on her own. She's had to be father and mother to them. She's had to build a home and build a life in a new community. And when you think about what she's been through, it's no wonder she's so strict and so hard on them.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way she's been able to survive. She's in survival mode for all of this movie.
And
especially...
Which is why Dos Regatos is the emotional and thematic turning point of the movie that brings us into the conclusion.
Yeah, the thing is, she says we're safe here, we're secure, we're brave, and you hear her getting more and more het up as she says it throughout the film.
Yeah.
At the start of the film, it sounds like she believes it. By the end of it, she don't believe it. She's begging for that to be the truth.
Yeah.
Because she's terrified. And, well, I said the 2/3 of the film.
Yeah.
And it's because what she's done, she's telling everyone you're safe, you're secure, because that's what she wants.
Yeah.
But she's never switched off out of survival mode because she doesn't truly believe she's safe and secure. Classic trauma response. That's what, you know, I don't know if you've got family who've ever been, like, had to move in a hurry. Like, My great aunt, I remember going to her house once, and she had a cupboard in her kitchen, and it was just full of bags of flour. More flour than anyone could use in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. She grew peas in her back garden. She, she was always, every time I went to see her, she'd sneak me money and sneak me little sweets of food. Keep that, keep it safe, keep it safe. And I'd say, what's this for, Auntie? And she'd say to me, just keep it safe. You never know when you'll need it. Yeah.
Yeah.
She always had this mentality of squirreling things away. And you know what? I'm quite similar growing up in relative poverty. You do the same. You sort of, it's not materialism because it's not being materialistic.
Yeah.
It's feeling the need to surround yourself with stuff, because the more stuff you have, the more it becomes representative of being secure where you are.
Yeah.
Because if you've got stuff, that means you're settled and you've got roots and you're secure. If you don't have anything and you live your life out of a suitcase, that means you're on the run and you're poor and you're struggling. And I see it a lot in people. I've got friends who family came from Europe in the 50s, friends who were kids of the Windrush generation. The first thing the Windrush generation did is buy property and put their kids through school. And it's all in the search of that security. And that's why this generational trauma is the families who pass it down forget to remind themselves that actually we are safe now, we are secure. That's why
don't mind me just flashing back to my high school years.
Yeah. but that's why, as an example, Chaos, you'll remember last year when the news came out that they were bringing in a law in the UK that if you were first generation born in the UK to even one immigrant parent, you could potentially be deported to their home country, a country you'd potentially never been to. That pulled the rug out from us, because we've been taught and raised you're in a safe place, but you're not secure, and that only reinforces that message. That tells us I'm not safe in this country. I'm not secure. My passport's not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah.
And so you're immediately flung back to being in the same situation your parents and grandparents were in, where they were displaced and didn't really have a home.
Yeah.
Yeah. While I didn't personally experience that, the majority of my IRL friends, it did directly impact. And it did actually impact my family, because that law could have applied to my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was... Actually, my grandma did a really... To tie this back into Encanto a minute, a really abuela thing and just pretended nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of you're either abuela in that situation, pretending nothing's wrong and just hoping it doesn't come for you, or you kind of do what I did, which is freak out and start fighting back.
Yeah.
And start making other... It's no coincidence that within a few months of that happening, knowing now that my British passport's not worth anything, that I started looking at, okay, but where can I get a visa to live? And then we started looking at me going to the US to be with Ring.
Yeah.
Because before then, the plan had been for at least 2 or 3 years, Ring coming here.
Yeah.
But I can't bring Ring here knowing that my security in this country is not confirmed and is not absolute. Because then Rings isn't either. And we're building on non-existent foundations. So you start looking elsewhere. And it's... Wow. I need therapy.
Yeah.
I need therapy for a lot of shit.
Yeah. It's like, I watched Encanto. Now I realize I need therapy.
Oh, no, I knew I needed therapy before, but not for this much shit.
Yeah. Or rather, I watched Encanto. Now I realize I need more therapy.
Yeah.
Mood. I don't know if I don't know if you relate to this at all, Ring, but I can map onto the old church I went to which people I would most closely associate with which of the madrigals.
Not honestly, I haven't tried. Probably couldn't do it with my church. Might be able to do it with my family.
I could do it with your family.
Yeah.
Okay, so off the top of my head, okay, you're Louisa. Next sister is Isabella. Brother is probably Bruno.
Yeah.
Younger sister is probably Weather Girl. Name keeps going out my head. Pepper. Your mum's from what I kind of know in your mum's probably actually the mother character.
Yeah.
And your old man's probably Abuela.
Though that being said, I actually kind of pegged my brother as Camilo in my mind.
Camilo.
The one who can look like anyone.
Actually, Camilo. Yeah, but other than that, I'm pretty dead on, aren't I?
Yeah.
Which tells you everything you need to know about Ring's family, folks.
Yeah.
Because like with my family, my dad's definitely Abuela. My mum was definitely the mother character. You know, I've got cousins, and I'm like, Isabella. You know, Louisa.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think what's dangerous is when you see families who've got too many Abuelas.
Yeah.
When I extend it out to my extended family, there's 2 or 3 Abuelas in there. Which, and not all of them women, but that's something else I want to point out about this film. Petticoat government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Petticoat government. It's I don't know if that idiom translates. It's something really. I picked up from Caribbean culture. Petticoat government is when all the heads of the family, all the generation, are women, and it's usually because the men have either died off or they're divorced, or if there's been a war, you can tell there's been a war in that generation or something.
Yeah.
Petticoat government, all that's left behind is the women, and the women are in control. They wear petticoats. And it's kind of in Caribbean culture, it's said with a sneer. Of, you know, the families basically, they've got no strength behind it because there's no men in the family.
Yeah.
Or the women are in control. That means that the men will be somehow lesser because they answer to the women.
Yeah.
This film's very much, I think, there's a lot of women in this film.
Yeah.
You've got the dad and the fiance, the only 2 male and Bruno, the only male speaking characters really.
The dad,
adult male speaking characters.
The dad, Uncle Felix, and the fiance.
Which
but actually, you get Felix and Pepper have kind of got a bit of a. You can tell they love each other, but there's a bit of banter there where she does most of the talking.
Yeah.
It's the standing joke of how it was with my parents of, he wears the trousers in this relationship, and he's got my permission to say so.
Yeah.
That's what's going on with Pepper and Felix. Then you've got Bruno, obviously, who is the black sheep.
Yeah.
You've got the fiance, who is kind of just a generic character. I don't really have much to say about him.
He's just kind of there, and then just like kind of there for a scene.
Yeah, but he's under the same pressure as them as well, because he was obviously getting into the engagement for his family's sake.
Yeah.
And he clearly didn't want to be in it.
Yeah.
And then you get the father. And the father, despite only speaking in like one scene, is really interesting.
Yeah.
He's this silent figure, but he speaks to Mirabelle twice. He speaks to her and he says, I know what it's like to be in this family, to have no gift.
Yeah.
And to fade into the background.
Yeah.
And he's trying to connect with her because he gets it. He does get it. But he doesn't get it on the same level of her as it was never expected that he would have a gift.
Yeah.
He's trying, bless him, but he just, there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And then there's the moment where he sees that she's got in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And she blurts out everything to him. That scene doesn't happen without the prior scene of him trying to connect with her, first of all.
Yeah.
He's her safety valve in that moment. He's done for her what she did for Louisa.
Yeah.
But also, you see his reaction. And his reaction is really telling, because his reaction gives the impression that it's a house of cards.
Yeah.
And it really is. And it's really telling how terrified he is of the truth. And I wrote it. Yeah, I wrote it down here. It all comes crashing down under the weight of the truth.
Yeah.
And he knows that's going to happen. And that thought is terrifying. Because they've been led to believe that this is the only way to be safe.
Yeah.
And because there's also the moment as well when the sister says, I heard him tell his parents he wants 5 babies. Did anyone else clock Isabella's face at that?
Yeah.
She looked horrified just for a split second.
Yeah.
Did anyone else clock it? And I legit wrote, does Isabella want 5 babies?
Well, and so fun. And this was confirmed as intentional, or as the intention by the animators. Dolores added the 5 babies herself.
Yeah. Because the 5 babies is... It's a little niggly jab at... Are you sure, Isabella? You're meant to be all grace and beauty. Do you want to ruin your figure with 5 babies? Is that really the life you want?
Yeah.
Because that's a lot to put on what we assume is a 16, 17-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And Isabella's reaction, quite clearly, that's not what she wants.
Yeah.
She's very Stepford, and then obviously we get pressure, which... not pressure.
Look what I can do, or what else can I do?
What else can I do? Yeah. And it is... Isabella is... Again, Isabella's interesting because Isabella goes through what I remember going through that. I remember looking and realizing, having to sit and think, what am I really good at? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
And I remember remember that big blowout argument about my A-level results with my parents that I mentioned? I remember sitting down a few days later and my mum coming into my bedroom and saying to me, I want to talk to you. I said, what? She said, I want to talk to you. I want you to tell me what you actually want to do with your life. And it was the first time, I think, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. It was the first time I gave myself permission to ask what I could do and what I was capable of.
Yeah.
Because I remember my mum saying to me, you've got to live your life and I'll be proud of you no matter what.
Yeah.
And all I want for you is for you to live your own life and to be happy.
Yeah.
And that, okay, now I'm crying. That's what Isabella gets from this song with Mirabelle here. And it's what this film gives best.
Yeah.
It's the happy ending these kids get. And that's why that song hit me hardest. What else can I do? Because, you know, like I said, if someone had have asked me that at 11, 12 years old, I'd have burst into tears because no one had ever asked me that before.
Yeah,
and when your parents finally come on side and say, okay, we're with you, it's special. It really is when it happens. You know, and it's not a one-time thing. It's a process. It's not just one conversation.
Yeah.
But one conversation is usually the start of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that something else that Isabella's portrayal brings in as well is, I don't think it's not super explicit, but she doesn't control anything right down to the way she dresses. Her dress style is a very like traditional Colombian thing, down to the point that her outfit color is the color of the national Colombian flower.
Yeah, everything about her life is controlled by other people, and no one's asked her what she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even to the point, did anyone else pick up on this? And again, revealing too much of myself.
Yes.
Did anyone notice about Mirabella? Everywhere she goes, even within her own home, she carries a bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bit weird to me. I wasn't sure if that was a cultural thing, but then I saw the characters didn't do it, and I was like, huh.
Yeah, I noticed it because I do the same thing. No matter where I go, I've got a bag.
Yeah.
And it's, you know how I was talking about that security? It's knowing that in that bag I've got a notepad, a pen, my wallet, my phone, my keys. And it's always got to be just heavy enough I can feel it. You know, it can never be empty because that don't feel right.
Yeah.
And it's her go bag.
Yeah.
It's if the house was falling down and I had to run, what would I grab? I'd grab my bag because I know everything I need, everything I truly need is in that bag.
Yeah.
My phone's in there, my purse is in there. I keep a spare battery, you know, the power packs. I keep one of those in my handbag. Heavy as fuck. Do I need it? No, because my phone will last 24 to 36 hours without a charge.
Yeah.
More if I'm not on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth constantly. But I still have one in there, and I still have a spare charge cable, and I still have, you know, coins floating around the bottom. and a penknife in there, and basic survival tools.
Yeah.
If my house burned down right now and I needed to get out and I could only take things that would help me survive, all the things I need to survive are in that bag. A spare lighter, spare packet of cigarettes. I'll go out for a night out with 20 cigarettes in my packet, and I'll still take a spare packet with me just in case.
Yeah.
And she does the same thing. She takes her bag everywhere.
Yeah,
and
fact,
it's like a kid kiting around a teddy bear. It's a comfort thing as much as anything else.
Yeah, in fact, when, she's tossing clothes off to the side at the beginning, she's searching for her bag.
Yeah. Because you know that moment where you don't quite know where your phone is and you do the phone dance?
Yeah.
It's that feeling when you don't have your bag with you. Like I said, it's not being materialistic. It's having internalized that need to always be safe, always be secure, and always have what you need to survive if you need to in any situation.
Yeah.
For years, I live in an urban city. I go everywhere by bus. For years, you know those saw strings that you buy for camping? They're about so long with rings on the end, and it's a chain to cut wood.
Yeah.
For years, I used to carry one of those. On the off chance that I'd be caught or I have to cut something that was harder than my penknife could cut.
Yeah.
And, things like always a spare snack in there, or always money to buy a snack, or, always at least 2 pens. I feel weird if I go out with a fountain pen and I don't have a spare ink cartridge or an ink or ink to refill my pen.
Yeah.
Even though the pen's full and I know the pen can can write 3.5 pages without needing to be inked up, 3.5 pages of A4, and I know I'm only going to be signing my name twice, I'll still take spare ink cartridge with me because I feel weird without it. I don't feel prepared.
So this is just me having a realization on like a live stream that I do the exact same thing, Noodle. You've seen the bag that I carry around. I carry that around everywhere, and I keep it by the front door.
Yeah, it's your go bag. It's what you would grab if, God forbid, touch wood, all that jazz. See, I'm Bruno. I'm superstitious. God forbid, touch wood. But even it's that thing of, God forbid, there was a sudden fire in your house or lightning struck your house and you had 10 seconds to get out. That's what you'd pick up and grab.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't do that. And then I thought about it. And it was like, oh shit, no, I do that. I carry enough shit in there to last me at least 4 days if I need it.
Yeah, it's the same thing. My mum used to wear a lot of jewellery. I'm talking gold rings on every finger, 2 or 3 chains, 3 pairs of earrings. She had 3 piercings in her ears. And I said to her once, I said, Mum, why do you wear so much jewellery? She said, because if I have to run, this is what's going to keep me alive. I can barter it, I can sell it. So that was her handbag, if you like. She knew no matter what happened, anywhere she went, while she was wearing that jewellery, she had a safety net. She had something there that would keep her going and would get her to safety. And my great aunt, same thing. When she used to give me the little money and say, keep it safe, keep it safe. It's the same, and it's the generational trauma that gets passed down of you're never safe, you're never secure, always be prepared for everything to end. For months and months after the Grenfell fire, I live in a block of flats. I've got a big camping rucksack that's like 3 foot tall, stood tall. I literally had 3 pairs of clothes, a spare pair of shoes, spare phone cables, like notebooks, my passport, everything, like even bits of my jewelry, like sentimental items, jewelry and stuff, in that bag. And there's a cupboard behind my front door. I literally had it in that cupboard so I could reach in and yank it out and run if I had to. Because that, again, was another thing where my brain lit up, and when your family's taught, and I didn't have to ask anyone what to put in that bag. I knew what needed to go in there. Because I've been taught from a young age, these are the things we value, these are the things you need to make sure you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. My flat is a mess. But I know exactly where all my jewelry is. I know exactly where all my documents are and everything, and it's there. And it would take me less than a minute to pick up all the things I needed and get out of this flat if I had to. It'd probably take me longer to find my shoes than it would to find my birth certificate and my jewelry, because my shoes are probably under a desk somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, and it is very much that. I think, I don't know if you, I know you said you can speak to sort of the pressure and the expectation, but that fear that's ingrained in you to never, ever, ever get complacent. I don't know. I'm sure Ring, you know, you said flashbacks to high school years. You know what I'm talking about. This is why I have great sympathy for hoarders, because I am one. But, you know, I get it. It's that need to feel like you've put down roots and that you're safe and no one can take it away.
Yeah,
I do. I get it.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, exactly, Scummy. You always make sure you've got at least 2 lighters, because you know you're going to lend one to someone and they're going to walk off with it. It's that, but on a larger scale.
So,
and
so sorry about that, but I decided out of curiosity I'd check to see how Plugged In feels about, you know, just skim through the Plugged In review of Encanto real quick.
Go on.
And hold on, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit before I screen share.
I need to put my glasses on to read it then.
I might need you to read it out to me because I'm currently not working from a laptop, and so can't.
So this is the people that focus on the family not getting the point of Encanto in like 2 sentences.
Go on.
Okay, so Chrome tab. Other negative elements. Every family has its own tensions, and the members of the Madrigal family fight at times. Sometimes these fights are between siblings and venting longtime grievances. Other rifts arise between generations, with a youngster arguably treating an elder with disrespect.
Okay, now I get what you mean, Chaos, by coming from a Pentecostal background, why you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That last bit there. Other rifts arise with a youngster arguably treating an elder with disrespect.
Yeah.
So, again, it's another thing that goes around online occasionally. I think it started off on Tumblr, where the generational differences in what we call respect. So I remember, again, having this argument as a teenager with my parents, with my dad. And I came home and I said, you know, you have no respect for me. And what I meant by respect was, you don't treat me like a human being.
Yeah.
You don't treat me with respect, with common decency. What my dad heard was, you must respect me and treat me as an authority, because that's what respect meant to him.
Yeah.
And that's what he expected from me. And we clashed.
Yeah.
And to this day, if you get him drunk enough and he starts going on about it, he still believes that that's what I was demanding of him, and he can't see past it.
Yeah.
No matter how many times I've explained to him that that's not what I was trying to say.
Yeah, like my grandparents will say respect me and I'll respect you. And what they will actually mean is treat me as an authority figure and I will treat you like a human
being.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. And so I think they know both, but when it's applied to them, they always assume that it's the form of respect that means treating with authority.
Yeah. Treat me like an authority and I will treat you like a human being. That's not respect. That's not a two-way respect. That's a really unequal relationship.
Yeah.
And that's what that last sentence in that thing you've just shared is getting at. Because I think the most respectful thing anyone could have done, it should not have been on Mirabel's shoulders.
Yeah.
To do that. Someone should have said that to Umbrella a lot sooner.
Yeah.
And I'm a great believer in if you respect someone, tell them the truth, even if it hurts. Because if you respect someone, you should respect them enough to know that they're man enough or woman enough or person enough to deal with it.
Yeah. But
they're a grown-ass adult. They can handle their shit. So you let them handle it.
And it's like part of the reason why I did that, why I got curious, because my first on my first viewing, my main gripe, well, one of my main gripes was that, for me at least, as an adult viewer, the metaphor seemed a bit too on the nose. And then I kept seeing usually right-leaning people not getting it.
Yeah, I think as well, though, there's a difference, because my brain has just applied a comparison with The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
So in The Little Mermaid, she screams at her father, "I'm 16, I'm an adult," which, no, you're not. Sit down, child. But, it's that thing that she just wants to be cut loose to live her own life. It's the same conversation. But the way it's done in this movie, I think this is the first Disney movie I've really seen where we see the parents change towards supporting the child when there are actually parents involved, or grandparents, as in this case.
Yeah.
That doesn't ring hollow. So, like in The Little Mermaid, she goes through it all, and then he just shows up at the end and gives her legs. And that's his, go free, run, live your life. But nothing really happens between them to trigger that. And it's almost all off screen.
Yeah.
Whereas with this movie, we see the flashpoint. And it's real and it's human. And the reason Abuela cracks and the house cracks under it is because it's what's colloquially and on social media known as a truth bomb.
Yeah.
Mirabella drops a truth bomb out in the open in front of everyone where it can't be hidden from.
Yeah.
Now, the family could have collectively decided to live in denial and carry on as they were.
Yeah.
That's what happens in real life.
Yeah.
What happens in this, because it's a Disney movie, is the house breaks under the weight of the truth. And even the way the house collapses, it looks like it's been bombed. It's all, broken down and everything else. And what I found really touching, with its last dying moment, the house, which is their protector, which I think is imbued with the love Abuela felt but couldn't necessarily show.
Yeah.
For the family, with its last almost dying breath, if you like, what does it do? It protects Mirabella from the falling debris. Even in that moment where she's the one who's broken it, by dropping that truth bomb on it, it moves to protect her even as it's dying.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Casita and Abuela, to me, Casita is everything Abuela wanted to be.
Yeah.
And because it has no voice and it only moves and it's open to interpretation, it doesn't have it's anthropomorphized by the characters in the film. And as the audience, we're encouraged to do the same. And it is that it is the matriarch of the family in the way Abuela can't be because of her trauma and because she's so hyper focused on keeping everything running.
And once again, this is why Dos Oregatos is the turning point in the film, because, you know, it's very much about how you need to break out of the, you know, chrysalis you've built for yourself to hide from the trauma.
Yeah.
And how the world is a big, you know, terrifying, you know, scary, dangerous, always changing place, but you can't hide forever.
Yeah. And I think as well, this film puts a lot on the kid and on Mirabella to be the safety valve Abuela needs to learn that. And I think it's really interesting that Abuela has to go back before she can move forward. And it's a really common cinematic trope that in order to move forward emotionally, socially, productively, first you have to go back to what broke you in the first place. And the thing is, you all know I'm studying psychology.
Yeah.
That's a basic tenet of CBT therapy. Like, you go back to the memory and you piece it together and you figure it out, and then you move forward.
Also, here's a little theory that came to me on my second rewatch. Bruno's prophecy about the embrace wasn't about Isabella. It was about Abuela.
Yeah, it was about Abuela. In fact, when I saw it, watching it, and they were seeing the prophecy for the first time.
Yeah.
Right before I realized it was the sister, I genuinely expected it to be Abuela there.
Yeah. Because, I mean, especially when you look at the flashback sequence in Dos Arigatos, Abuela's almost a spitting image for Isabella.
Yeah, she is. And that's deliberate as well.
Yeah, like Isabella was supposed to be the next leader, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 children, getting married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And follow the butterfly, and
I have one thing to say. Yay! It wasn't a spider. I did have a moment of yeah. It wasn't a spider. Follow the butterfly.
Yeah.
Maybe the butterflies were the healing we found along the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, arguably, you could say that like it, basically, once again I'm putting my reading on the fact that Dos Oregatos is the thematic hinge of the movie. That both of the caterpillars are the two caterpillars are Mirabelle and Abuela. Mirabelle has to break out of her chrysalis to come into her own as, a growing young woman. And Abuela needs to break out of her trauma.
Yeah. And yet it's presented as a love song.
Yeah.
Do you know the last time I saw Disney do that? Like, use that specific trope in that specific way?
What?
Lion King 2.
Yeah.
With Kiara and Kovu. So I do like that Disney is... This film, I think, cherry picks the best of classic Disney.
Yeah.
And has really, really moved forward into the new age of Disney.
Yeah.
We talked about this before, how there's a new age of Disney, how it's becoming deliberately more progressive and everything else.
Yeah.
And can I just say, to anyone who thinks that Disney moving out of European folk tales now into the wider world is appropriation, fuck you. I have friends in all of these cultures that Disney's done recently, and they are all super stoked to see their cultures represented in such a way.
Yeah.
I'd like to...
Yeah. Go on.
I was just going to say, I'd like to reference something that a Latino friend said to me.
Go on.
Thank you for the representation, Disney. I mean, fuck you for bringing up all of our trauma, but thanks for the representation.
And that's kind of how I feel about this film. Like, I feel so seen and represented by this film. And I'm not even Colombian.
Yeah.
But I feel so seen and represented, but also, fuck you, Disney, I need therapy now.
Yeah.
Like, this stream has become my therapy. Like,
yeah.
Jeez. And it's...
And my other main gripe, and it is kind of a nitpicky thing with and it was largely on first viewing, is I think I thought the film kind of suffered from being a typical 3D animation film.
I'd have preferred it in 2D.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, I can agree there. That hadn't really occurred to me, but that is something that does feel weird about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what it feels like? It feels like it was storyboarded by a 2D animator, but then actually put together by a 3D animator.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it as a film, from the visual aspects of it, it hits all the points for classic 2D animation. In the music scenes, it goes hyper realistic and into that almost fantasy element.
Yeah, it really does. Like, it really does straddle the line between, movie and then strategic stylization.
Yeah. And that strategic stylization is really, really prevalent in 2D animation. Any music montage from any classic Disney movie you can point to, and it's that.
Yeah.
It is exactly that. And that's what Disney has always, always excelled at. Almost to the point, if you look at some of the music montages, they're actually in 2D.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at Pressure, and we don't talk about Bruno, as they're singing and in the flashbacks, they're 2D.
Yeah.
When she has, when you've got the earth and everything up there.
Yeah.
They're so stylized, they're almost 2D. The earth wasn't 2D, but everything else around her, the plain color background and her drawn onto it and everything else. It's so close to really classic Disney. And I just... this one's going to be a classic, and it's going to stay a classic for a long time.
I was about, because I know me and Chaos brought it up in our Disney talk, because the Disney talk almost became a secondary Encanto talk. So yeah, I was about to ask you, now that you've seen it, do you feel like Encanto's basically going to be the first classic of the modern Disney era?
Yeah. Obviously, for a lot of people, it's going to be Let It Go. But I think for those of us who actually remember the classic era, this is very much for a movie for us.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because the generation that remembers the classic era are about, late 20s and having kids?
Yeah.
That tracks. They make movies for the parents and for the kids. That's how Disney does it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to more because that's how that's going to go. This is the first Disney movie I've watched in a long time. Even rewatches for stuff we discussed on Media Musings.
Yeah.
That I know I will go back and watch again.
Yeah.
It's the first. I think it's the first Disney movie since Hercules that I want on DVD or Blu-ray.
Yeah. Well, here's the question.
But
do you want
just to clarify that, I did see Hercules after I saw The Little Mermaid and like all the other classics.
Yeah.
Like Hercules was, yeah.
So here's the question though: do you want to fight Cerberus?
Yeah, I did have to say I did enjoy the callbacks in that montage to Hercules and just to myth in general.
Yeah,
like she was in there. She basically did. If you look at it, she did the labors of Hercules in that montage.
Yeah.
There's the Atlas moment where she held up the earth.
Yeah.
There's the Cerberus moment. You can argue that the donkeys are something akin to the golden calf.
Yeah.
You know, so they're all kind of in there.
And literally right before the song, one of the villagers asks her to redirect the river.
Yeah, redirect the river. Exactly, they're all in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that.
And that's
Sorry.
And the thing is, she goes through the same character development that Hercules went through of having to decide whether she wants it or not.
Yeah.
Which is nice, and I'm not surprised she appealed to young girls, especially this generation who are the first one who have been told by Disney you don't have to be a princess.
Yeah, and once again, the whole Disney overproduced on Isabella merch, and then it turns out everyone wants Louisa.
Well, the thing is with Isabella, what were they expecting? Because Isabella was the perfect princess, and she didn't want it, and it wasn't the life she wanted.
Yeah.
And kids are going to notice that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that a big aspect of that sort of thing and how Louisa had a lot of like the labors of Hercules and stuff was in how it was designed. And I haven't read too deeply into it, but I know that after he finished with Moana in 2016, pretty much right there and then, Lin-Manuel Miranda started working on Encanto. And he wanted a lot of the different characters to draw stylistically on different things and to be more about broader themes and family.
Yeah, I will say, and I noted this right early on in the initial exposition song. I noted it. I put, the kids are crushed by being archetypes.
Yeah.
The kids are all archetypes. Which is why also we were talking before this stream, and I said, imagine a D&D party with all these kids.
Yeah.
They are archetypes. and the real, I think, truth of this film is that we see all of them in the family go from being generic archetypes to human beings.
Yeah.
And that for me is why this film is very much in the classical style.
Yeah.
It's an epic. It's kind of the Iliad without the war. Like, you've got all these archetypes in one place, and boom, inciting incident, off you go.
Yeah.
In that sense, because that's basically what the Iliad is.
Yeah.
But your inciting incident there is Helen or Paris. No, it's Paris's libido.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Paris's libido. Maybe it's Aphrodite.
It's a collection of things.
Why? I mean, Paris.
Look, do you know what it is? It's Aphrodite's shipping. That's what it is.
Though, I mean, Paris's libido made him choose Aphrodite.
Look me in the eyes right now with a straight face and tell me you wouldn't have done the same. Because that's all every human being wants, is someone who is love.
Yeah.
At our core, that's what we want as human beings. So, you know,
Yeah.
Paris was fundamentally human, flawed, but human. Aphrodite offered him. Listen, there's a reason the folk tales go for the poison apple. It's because the golden apple came first.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's my take on it. What else do we need to talk about? Do we want to talk about the villagers?
What about them? The bit where they put a young mother of triplets in charge of the village, or the bit where they became really reliant upon the family and then had to learn how to deal with that at the end?
Or the bit where the community came together and helped the family, or the bit where the community then shared in the magic by doing so. The community is very much a microcosm of, well, a macrocosm of what's going on in the family.
Yeah.
The community goes through the same stages as the family do.
And then, and then of course there's the fun hyper kids on running, the fun running joke of hyper kids on coffee.
Yeah, I just got such Alvin and the Chipmunk vibes from those kids. They were fun.
And that's why coffee's for grown-ups.
Yeah.
They also, as well, reminded me of the two kids from Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
Yaha, naha, yaha, naha. Like, that's what's going on there.
Also, another small thing I want to just mention about how Abuela just blatantly gaslights Mirabelle in front of everyone.
This is what I meant by the way Abuela behaves is a result of trauma. And if you don't know Abuela's history, it looks like gaslighting.
Yeah.
But I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that Abuela was meant to be representative of those people who were traumatized and never got help and therefore are stuck in the cycle.
Yeah.
Channel punching bag. There are certain characters in that particular series who do the same. Clearly traumatized, clearly going through a lot, and the only thing they know how to do is stay in survival mode and to keep fighting and to be angry and to be stern and to be strict. Where's my little Snape? Where's my little Snape? He needs a hug. Abuela needed a hug. That's what it is.
Well, yeah, but okay, so while we can understand it, it doesn't, it
doesn't excuse it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, to an extent, I don't even think it justifies it.
Yeah.
But it explains it, and I think we have a duty to those generations who went through things like that and continue to do so, to be kind to them and to lend them some grace. And to the kids who were raised by them, I'm talking about my parents' generation, who didn't necessarily live through the trauma, but inherited it.
Yeah.
And I think being 2 generations removed from the actual trauma, realistically, the generation we see in the film, my generation, we're the first ones who even have the opportunity to look around and say, this is not right.
Yeah.
Something needs to change. And to point it out and to do something about it. And to seek the help and support and everything else. And I think there's a real... The more adult, the more realistic, the more emotional ending for me in this movie would have been the house magic not returning.
Yeah.
Because then the family has to go through a period of mourning, but also has to learn to forgive. Has to learn to forgive the generations that came before who were only doing their best with what they had.
Yeah.
But obviously it's a Disney movie, so that didn't happen. Yeah. Roll credits. You know?
Yeah. So, anything else we want to touch on before final thoughts?
I wouldn't talk about the ending. And I want to talk about the second house. And I had just about pulled myself back together from crying when Antonio handed Mirabelle the doorknob. And as soon as she looked at, they started saying she needs a doorknob, I knew. And she looked up at the door, and literally my brain went, it's her door! And I just, again.
Yeah.
I was just a wreck. It's over! And then obviously, and it is it's designed to parallel that moment of the family watching her walking towards the door, and the doorknob's got her initial on it like everyone else's, and it's all there. So you kind of, by the time she puts the knob in the door, you're expecting it to be magic again.
Yeah.
But the truth is, Mirabelle's magic is not in... You see her parents say it. Her parents say, look at our little girl. Look at what she's doing. And she's directing builders, and she's in control. She's grown into herself.
Yeah.
Her gift is that she doesn't need magic.
Yeah.
Her gift is that she's what's holding that family together. And she's what's rebuilt that family. And you can take the ending one of 2 ways. For me, the ending undercuts that a little bit, because then it brings the magic back, and it's like... But the entire point is that she did it without magic.
Yeah.
But then you see on the door, everyone's is on the door, and the door carving is basically, if you look at it, it's the photograph she was excluded from at the start. Did anyone else notice that?
No. Oh, no. I can't. Yeah, I couldn't really get a good look at
I noticed it, and she's in the center of the door, in the center of the frame of the image, when she was excluded from it before. And then when she pushes the door open, she has to invite them in, and the house grows around them. But for me, that kind of undercuts it, because you're saying that the magic is the be-all and end-all rather than who she is as a person. But you can always turn it the other way and say she is the magic.
Yeah, because it's very...
Which I think is what they were really going for.
Yeah, because it's very obvious, it's very hammered in that the state of the magic is dependent on the state of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Mirabelle rebuilt the family, so she rebuilt the magic.
Yeah. That's a lot to put on a young girl.
Yeah.
And what worries me as an adult, and this is why I think I might be a bit too jaded for Disney movies. What worries me as an adult is how many kids are going to watch that and take on the message that it's their job to fix their family's problems.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the opposite of the message they should be taking from this movie.
Yeah.
But it's a Disney movie, so of course the protagonist has to be the winner and has to do it.
Yeah.
But kids are not responsible for holding their families together. And that sticks in my craw that that's a potential reading of this film.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure we all know at least one person who's the child of divorced parents who went through a phase of blaming themselves.
Hi.
Yeah. Or a kid who went through something horrendous, and when the family found out, it broke the family apart.
Yeah.
Bruno, yeah, looking at you, buddy.
Yeah.
And that's why this film sticks for me.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love the film. I think it's beautifully done. Thanks for the trauma. No, it's not even thanks for the trauma. It's, if you were gonna tear my armor off, could you have at least warned me first?
Yeah.
It's like it's not, the film hasn't traumatized me. What it's done is it's prized the shell off the crab.
Yeah.
And started prodding at the soft flesh underneath. That's what's gone on there. And when you've got so many pressure points, as I clearly have, the film's a non-stop subfest.
I'm sorry. I thought, like, I figured from you're seeing my reaction to it, you'd have some idea of what you were getting in for.
I thought I did, but then I was like, nah, it's Disney, and yeah.
Well, and I mean, if you look at the advertising for the movie, they sold it as a happy, friendly, or family friendly Disney film. It's like, here, happy Disney film. Go see it in theaters, and then they kidney punch you in the trauma after taking your money.
Yeah, and I think what got me is I heard more than one person has said to me, your favorite song in this movie says what your trauma is.
Yeah.
Or the song that hit you hardest is indicative of your trauma. So I was expecting like maybe one song to hit me or one bit of the movie to hit me, not like a full-on hour-and-a-half sob fest. Like it was like going 10 rounds with Mike Tyson or something. It was just like it kicked me while it knocked me down and then brutally laid into me and just didn't stop.
So what you're saying is the next time we watch Encanto, it has to be while we're both together in person, so we can cuddle each other and get each other through it.
Yeah, it's not even that though. Like, I know people who have got a lot of different traumas.
Yeah.
Who've watched this movie and said the movie, that certain songs stuck with them or certain songs had them in bits. I don't know anyone who has said to me the whole movie's just No one said that to me. No one was like, I feel raw after watching the movie. I feel like I've done like 3 hours of therapy. And it was like, it's rough. And that's probably really indicative of how much trauma I have and how much different trauma I have. That at different points in this movie, I could identify with pretty much all the trauma songs and a lot of the quotes and a lot of the major moments for every character. Yeah, folks, I'm a wreck. Tell me something I don't know. But this film really did tell me something I don't know, and it smacked me in the face with it.
Yeah. While all of it is at least a bit of a mood for me, I do think that it's probably more so for you than me. Me definitely there.
Yeah.
I think. Do you know what it is? I'm gonna academic hat on just for a moment. The difference between PTSD and complex PTSD. PTSD is a trauma response to a specific incident, a car crash, a fire, an attack, a harm of some description.
Yeah.
A bomb, a specific incident.
Yeah.
Complex PTSD is a trauma response to multiple compounding incidents. Childhood trauma, or being held prisoner for years, or, those are the two textbook examples.
Yeah.
And complex PTSD fundamentally changes who you are as a person after the fact.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like that every person I've spoken to about this movie, and this is a generalization, I'm not armchair diagnosing anyone, but it almost feels like as someone with complex PTSD, someone with PTSD went, yes, this triggered me. And I've gone, okay, cool, it might trigger me once, thinking that we have the same diagnosis and we don't.
Yeah.
And that's almost what it feels like.
Yeah.
Like I was told to expect one trigger, not 30.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I said 10 rounds with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anything else?
That's just my little psychological babble of the day.
Yep. So, anything else we want to cover before final thoughts?
Just one thing, and I think that I came across this fan theory that is probably my favorite fan theory, though I don't know that I would go with it. That's not related to the magic.
Yeah.
Which is that Mirabel is not actually Julietta's, but is Bruno's.
Okay.
With
Please elaborate.
The idea being that a lot of Mirabel's physical characteristics line up better with Bruno's than Julietta's. And it also follows the thematic, both of them come from outside of the family. And it might explain as well a bit of how other family members treated her if she didn't know, but the other family members knew that really she was Bruno's.
You're muted.
So the thing about her being Bruno's is, though, that's dark. And that goes back to what I said right at the start of this stream of, do we not talk about Bruno because it's unspeakable?
Yeah.
And if she's Bruno's, who's her mother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, and especially because there's the blink and you miss it joke with Bruno. Telenovela, their love is doomed because she's his aunt, but she doesn't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. It is exactly what telenovelas are like. They're like soap operas on like steroids.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched a Spanish language or Portuguese language telenovela, that's exactly what they're like. They're like EastEnders, but if all of the Slaters were actually all like interbred, and Peggy Mitchell was Phil Mitchell's sister, but somehow also his mother and his second girlfriend. That's what telenovelas are like. For the Americans, it's like Grey's Anatomy, but with way more romantic subplots.
Yeah.
And that's a really dark thought, because if she's Bruno's, then how is she? Who's her mother? But also, if you look at the nursery is in very muted colours.
Yeah.
It's in the same style of muted colours as the insides of the walls of the house and Bruno. So I can see why that tracks visually as well.
Yeah.
But I still reiterate, if she's Bruno's, who's her mother?
Yeah.
Because if her mother is her mother, then there's issues of incest there. And that is a bit dark for a Disney movie, but it could also be... Because let's be honest, most families' secrets are not that they're under pressure and the house is going to fall down.
Yeah.
Big family secrets are incest, abuse, violence, alcoholism. Yeah. These are the really dark things in real life. I can see how it maps on.
The theory, as I've read it, is effectively that Bruno had a girlfriend, she got pregnant and had a kid. We don't really know where she is. But then when Bruno had the vision, he effectively asked his sister to adopt his daughter. And then he left.
That works. Yeah, it can work either way, but one's a lot darker than the other.
Yeah.
Although him being her parent would feed into the Disney's orphan trope.
And also how he nearly instantly connects with her.
Even before she was born, he connected. He had the vision, and he was just like, I have to protect this child, because he knew what it was to be the black sheep of the family, and he didn't want her to have the same.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't before she was born. It was the day before she went to do the ceremony.
Yeah, so she wouldn't remember him.
Yeah. Because Abuela went to Bruno because she was worried about the magic.
So, explain me a thing. This was the day before she had her ceremony.
Yeah.
The day after, I think.
She remembers her ceremony in minute detail, but doesn't remember Bruno.
Yeah.
You know how we were talking about maybe the 5-year-old thing is because that's when your memories solidify?
Yeah.
It would track if he left before her ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's... Oh, something else has just occurred to me is I think it's really interesting how the different people clearly portray Bruno very differently in the song, and how each of their verses sheds a very different light on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because the song does get progressively darker. He goes from telling them, giving them warnings, to he made my wedding be a hurricane.
To Camilo's portrayal.
He's a creep. He's a weirdo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's Dolores, who has, growing up, surely heard him. who's the most sympathetic of like, no, I was scared, but like he was under so much fucking pressure.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Camilo, about Dolores as well. Dolores is characterized throughout this film as not being able to keep a secret.
Yeah.
But that's why don't say Dolores. You know, when Dolores hears them, she eat, and then it goes around the dinner table.
Yeah.
And yet she kept Bruno being their secret all those years.
Yeah.
No wonder she couldn't keep a secret. She was keeping that big one.
Yeah. Though she does kind of let it slip to Mirabelle slightly in a really cryptic way.
Oh?
The only people worried about the magic are you and the rats talking in the walls.
Yeah. So you've rewatched it. I've only watched it once, so I missed that. Yeah, because that's a weird thing for her to say, because she doesn't talk to the animals.
Yeah.
Which also then foreshadows Antonio saying, the rats told me.
Yeah.
But then that characterized Bruno as a rat, as vermin, as unwanted, as, you know.
Which is how the family is characterizing him at that moment.
Yeah.
Because, we don't know, we don't know Bruno until we meet Bruno. And up until we meet Bruno, Bruno's an enigmatic Disney villainous figure.
Mm-hmm. But Bruno as well, I think, we're primed to hate him, but then immediately we pity him.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a fine line between hate and pity.
Yeah.
And I think it's understanding that, seeing the truth of it is the truth. Is the fine line between hate and pity in a lot of cases. Because she goes through this dark cavern, and then he catches, and she's chasing him, and he's still set up as the villain. It's a villain chases that.
Yeah.
And then he catches her. She's crying out for the house to help her, and he catches her.
Yeah.
Bruno catches her.
And then we have that
is
one.
Bruno the house, because Bruno is rebuilding it, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, and then we have that wonderful sight gag where Bruno falls, and then the pit's not really that deep.
Yeah. Which is interesting. And it lampoons itself there. It's because Disney's done that gag a lot of times. That's the Mufasa moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, that's Mufasa.
Or, or the fact that basically most Disney villains die by falling, especially in the Renaissance.
Okay, you just said that, and I'm going to say a thing. The only person who ever in this movie is truly at risk of falling, with all that entails, with the idea that it's a callback to falling into hell and darkness and evil and everything else. Yeah. The only person throughout this entire movie who is ever truly at risk of falling and being at serious harm is Mirabella.
Yeah.
And yet it's because she makes choices and she thinks things through, or she makes a jump, or, anything else like that. It's through her choices that she doesn't fall.
Yeah.
And that's a really, especially when you think about what falling and caverns represent in Disney cinematography and visual media.
Yeah.
That's a really channel punching bag. It is our choices that make us what we truly are, Mirabella, far more than our abilities.
Yeah.
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 And that's kind of the implicit message that's been sent, which again is why the ending sticks in my craw, because it becomes her ability that, you know, but her ability is only gained through the choices she makes. So again, different arguments. I'm arguing with my own reading here. What? Can you tell I did A-level literature? I'm arguing with my own reading.
Yeah.
I'm a historian. This is what I do. I argue with my own understanding of things until I figure something out.
So once again, is there anything else we need to cover before final thoughts?
I feel like for me, sorry, no, go on.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, for me, there's just a billion tiny things that I think are really interesting thematically in the film, and I won't go through all of them. I don't want to try and keep you guys here for another 4 hours.
Yeah.
I just want to lightly touch on, and you all know I'm no expert in this subject of what I'm about to say, but I did get kind of Jewish Festival of Light vibes from the candle. You know, light at the end of the tunnel, the guiding light, the light of light it because we're free and we're safe and peaceful, all that jazz. And the protective nature of light. There's a lot of really good light imagery in it. And the candle. That's just a really interesting bit of symbology that I like. And again, speaks to what I was saying about this is really a story for the children of diasporas.
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that right, diaspora?
I think it's diaspora.
Diaspora, that's it. You can sometimes I read words and don't hear them out loud. Okay, diaspora.
Yeah.
So go back and mentally correct me saying that word badly for this entire stream. Okay. Plus, I'm dyslexic on top. You're lucky I got the letters right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very. I'm just going to make the comment of this movie is a classic story, and I don't mean classic as in classic Disney. I don't mean classic as in very good. I mean classic as in classical.
Yeah.
As in, this is a. It's Jason and the Argonauts in a house instead of a boat.
Yeah.
It's kind of got that sort of vibe going on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. To the point where it even references like actual places and things, because like the conflict at the start was the Colombian Civil War.
Yeah.
And again, civil wars. Timely that we watched it this week.
Yeah.
You were supposed to give me a palate cleanser. I didn't get it. But no, it is very much. It's a timely movie, and it does speak to that. I just if there's one thing I want to say, what this film made me realize as we've talked it through and as I watched it is, even though we all have different family histories and come from different places and got to where we are through different means.
Yeah.
especially if you have that generational family trauma in your family and that historical trauma, we've got far more in common than what separates us. Because what separates us is just the name of the conflict and which country we came from. But everything else is the same. It's the same experiences. And I think that's the lesson this film teaches, and that's a lesson I think everyone needs to clock onto.
Okay, so final thoughts?
What I just said.
Okay.
I think it's a very fun film, and I enjoy watching it, but it's also very cleverly and emotionally done. And it's I don't tend to like having favorites of things, but if I had to pick a favorite film that's come out in the last few years, that'd be it.
Yeah.
Here's my final thought. I'm going to come back and watch this film after several years of intense therapy and see if I react the same way.
Yeah.
This film, for me, I think, and my reaction to this film, first of all, it's a really good way of opening up these conversations if you know someone who's traumatized and you want to reach out to them, be they your kid, your family, your friend, whoever. But it's a film that I have a lot of complex feelings about because it showed me that other people have a lot of complex feelings that I've never had words for or never thought to put a name to.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think it acts and will remain more than just a kids' movie.
Yeah.
It is. First and foremost, it's a Disney flick. It's fun, it's colourful, it's got good songs, and it's got cool characters, and they've got magic, and yay, whippy, and the animals talk, kind of, and the house is, fun. I want to see the Disney Encanto house at Disney World, where you walk in through the house and, like, the house moves and talks to you and shit. Like, that's going to happen at some point. We know that's going to happen at some point.
I hope so.
You have to climb the ladder, but the ladder moves up and down, as you know, and things like that.
Yeah,
that's going to happen. I just think this film is so much more than that.
Yeah,
and this film is the truth bomb that I think all of us, that little abuela in all of us who doesn't quite know how to deal with shit, needs this film, because this film is the truth bomb that makes us wake up and look at ourselves.
Yeah.
And it does it in a really accessible, family-friendly way, which I'm all for.
Yeah. And final thought. This is probably going to be remembered as the first Disney classic of the modern era. Basically, that like if we're calling the current, the current modern era of Disney, if we're making correlations between the current modern era of Disney and the Disney Renaissance, this is probably the modern era's Beauty and the Beast.
For me, it's this era's Lion King. Thematically, not chronologically.
Yeah, I'm talking chronologically because I'd say Frozen was probably this era's Little Mermaid.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which is kind of sad when you realize the fact that Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast were separated by like 2 years. Frozen and Encanto were separated by a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot's happened in that decade, politically and socially, in the world.
Yeah.
And you can see the impact of it.
Yeah.
This is the right film at the right time.
Yeah. And it's hopefully Disney will take the correct lessons from the success of Encanto, in that basically lift what was good, lift techniques from the Renaissance and add the modern depth and emotional weight to that.
Mm-hmm. I will say as well, just for the record, Disney's finally stopped patronizing kids.
Yeah.
I noticed it in Frozen. It's there in The Emperor's New Groove as well. Although it's definitely there in Atlantis as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't just give kids a straight up narrative. It doesn't give kids a black and white villain hero story.
Yeah.
It's not a bedtime story. Encanto's not a bedtime story. Encanto's a let's sit and talk story.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think it's a story that anyone who watches it will carry with them. I know I will.
Yeah.
In a way, I think, in the same way I carry Robin Hood, but not the Disney version. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the Disney version, but I carried the lessons of the folk tale. This is a folk tale first and foremost. And it's a story about family and love and duty, but what it does in a way Disney hasn't done before. It kind of did it with Frozen, but not to the same extent. Disney's always had this very traditional, honourable death, duty to family, loved ones, and the greater good thing going on.
Yeah.
With this, it centres the narrative around duties to oneself.
Yeah.
And the duty to break free of expectation and to live your own life, which is a really... I mean, again, it did it in some of the classic movies. You've got Little Mermaid, you've got films like that, but it's not The Lion King. Like, he doesn't come back out. It doesn't end through a sense of duty.
It ends through a sense of
self, of purpose, and of belonging.
And of self... I know it's not a word. I know it's not a word, but it's self-well-care.
Yeah, it's self-actualization. It's that moment of being at peace with who you are.
Yeah.
And being happy with that.
And learning how to, and in the cases of some of the characters, learning how to, learning how to be yourself beyond your expectations.
Beyond other people's expectations. Yeah. And learning how to say no to the people you love most.
Yeah.
That's a really important lesson, because it's easy to tell a stranger no. or to tell your boss no, or to tell someone you don't know that well no, I can't. It can't be done, or it's not. That's not what I'm here for, or anything else. It's really hard to tell your parents no. It's really hard to tell your family no, because you want to live up to their expectations and what they want.
Yeah.
Every kid wants to do that, you know. So it's a really important lesson that Mirabelle says, no, I don't need a gift. I don't need, and Isabella says, no, I'm not going to marry that guy, and I'm going to make spiky flowers. And Louisa learns, no, I can put the rock down.
I can relax.
Yeah. Pepper's learned I can relax, I can show my own feelings and not just do as I'm told.
And not only I can show my own feelings, but I can actually revel in my own feelings.
Yeah. And there's an essay on stoicism and on misunderstanding stoicism in Pepper. Because Pepper is
clear skies.
Clear skies. Control your emotions. Control it. Keep your mind clear. But that's not what it is. Control it. Control your ex. Control it. Whereas Stoic philosophy, when you fully understand it, is accept your emotions, deal with them in a healthy way, but then control your response to them. Don't master your emotions. Don't repress them, and there is a difference.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing all these characters learn is to think for themselves. Even Abuela, to an extent, learns to think rather than to work on survival mode.
Yeah.
They learn to think and to feel for themselves. Yeah, that's my final thought.
Yeah. So, Shilling, do you have anything coming up, Chaos?
There's something I'd like to tell you two after the stream, but no.
Okay.
No. Cool.
I know next month is Mob Month, but I don't know what the kicker is.
Hang on. I've got it saved.
Yeah. Also, sometime soon, I'm probably going to, if you saw Breeze, Live from the Hive the week before this, last week's, Live from the Hive, about the Kandahar giant, that pushed buttons, and I need to react to the video they reacted to.
Cool. We're kicking off Mob Month with Little Caesar.
Okay. And also, I may have another generic topic to be inserted somewhere, but I need to talk to Noodle about it first.
Cool.
And with that, we'll because I know Noodle doesn't really usually have anything to shill. No. Okay. So with that, we'll move to taglines.
Take care, be good, and if you can't be good, be careful.
And Chaos?
Have a day, and remember, communication is key.
And remember, the purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think on. Too often.
And to take to your therapist.
Yeah. Too often, we forget that.